Beautiful day. Abibutumi. Greetings, family out there. Of course, my name is Mansa Folia Jamu. I'm a member of Jicho La Kimbunga Brotherhood. We're back with another edition, another show, another roundtable. Today, our topic will be no freedom, no peace, which, of course, is a little play on no justice, no peace. But we say no freedom, no peace. And if there ain't going to be no freedom in Africa, then you shouldn't be expecting no peace anytime soon. And we want to talk about that because we're concerned about peace in Africa. We're concerned about development and unity in Africa. And so the subtitle is From Congo, Rwanda to ECOWAS, AES. Very, very important. We'll be talking about the conflicts in these areas of Africa. The Congo-Rwanda situation, where the current U.S. President Donald Trump has been given credit for bringing peace, and we'll be talking about this. And then also, we'll be talking about the ongoing struggle within the West African region between the rising AES and also the declining ECOWAS. It's a serious struggle going on that the whole African world should know about. So with no further ado, what I like to do is bring out my my co-host. We're gonna come out here and chop it up. But before that, the first thing I want to do is bring out PG. PG, peace, PG. Bye-bye.
Hotep. Hotep.
How you doing, Hotep? Can you bless the occasion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A call to our elders. It is important that we recognize the spirit and the entities that have gone before us. We stand in their shadows and we live within their work. So we want to first call for the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. We call him first only because of our closeness to him in the timeline. I would like to then call on Kwame Nkrumah. We understand and touch him. Brother Malcolm X. El Haj Malik Al-Shabazz is another one. As his other name. I'd like to call out Queen Nzinga. We can't forget the sisters. Queen Mother Moore. We have to call out those names. Sister Estelle James. We want to call out the names of those who have gone before us, because you see, without them, we would not stand in this political realm. But also, we have to recognize those of our own family and call out their names. So I'm going to call out my father, Frank Murphy. You have to call him out. But I was raised not just by a strong black man, but a strong black woman. And I called out my mother, Betty Murphy, because we understand in the UNIA-ACRC 2020, African women lead. And so when they lead and we walk beside them, we are the shield, we are the lead force, and we are that which secures our future. I understand. Asante Sana, brother.
Absolutely. I say thank you so much, PG. Peace, Baba Senghor. How you doing? You ready to get it going?
Yeah, man. You know, beautiful subject, man. We need to really wake up people. PG, thank you so much for blessing us. Our ancestors waiting and watching, children crying and dying because of our own apathy, not understanding the real reason why we came into this world in the first place. Many of us have come to know our mission. It is important for those that have not to really take heed to what we're saying, because these are critical times. Our families are being broke down. Children are still being slaughtered. People are being pulled off the streets in North America. People in Africa are somewhat confused and running, getting caught up in this same old divisive game that's been played on us for many years of having us fight each other over resources that we should be sharing collectively. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the challenge and the reasoning.
Absolutely.
And hoping that everybody really takes heed to what we're sharing, because it's not about me, he or she, it's about we. Our ancestors are in us. PG called on many, but it's more ancestors than us, and many of them laid the path for us. So we need to stay true to Thomas Sankara and people like that who move forward to free us up and get rid of Yurugu all over the continent of Africa.
Absolutely.
I say.
So we're going to start with the Congo, Rwanda, and what I did was I went back. I watched some video from Kimbunga Media. You know, I think our brother Sakurai does such a great job of staying on top of issues. And he's been all over this Congo issue recently. Congo and Rwanda. And so I wanted to pull directly from the work of our brother and use it as an example of basically introducing us to this Congo-Rwanda situation. He featured a brother from the Congo who recently, he has a very easy way of summarizing this claim of peace in the Congo, this miraculous miracle that Donald Trump has apparently achieved. And he says in a very short clip, it's about 3 minutes. I'm going to play it, and then we're going to come back and talk about that for a little bit. And I got some more clips here for dealing with the ECOWAS AES that'll lead us in discussion. But I want to start with the Congo-Rwanda. So with no further ado, I'll go ahead and get the video going, and we'll come back and have the dialogue.
So,
all right.
What happened is simply the Act of Berlin being signed in Washington rather than in Berlin. So if we understand what took place in 1885, right? Western nations sat down at the table to carve up the African continent and give the Congo to King Leopold II as his personal property, and saying that that land called Congo Free State will be a land where we will access the resources without accession, not taking into account the lives of Congolese during that time. Trump did the same, right? Where he brought together Congo and Rwanda. Let's not forget, Rwanda is a U.S. ally. The belligerents in the conflict in the Congo are tied directly to the United States. They are very aware of what they're doing. They're providing them with weapons, with financial supports. This is why even in the text, they are writing what has unfolded in the RC for the past 30 years, right? So they're bringing a mercenary country, Rwanda, to the table. And they're making Congo sign a document. And when I say making Congo with the willing elites, our own elites, right? Those who are running our country, are agreeing to that, to take not just control of the mineral resources, because that's where we may go to, but what is even very bizarre, they want to share the national parks of the DRC. So you really say, wait a minute, why are they talking about the parks? They're talking about the minerals. That's the obvious that we can't criticize.
Yes.
But they said the national park. So Rwanda is in the Congo because of a park? Do they want to have access to the gorillas? To the okapis? Like, what is it? So it is, as I told you, I may go in so many directions, but the essence of what was signed is that in 2025, Africa's future has been put on the silver plate for the United States using a pretext. The pretext of conflict in the Congo is the same pretext that King Leopold used in 1885. He said that there was an Arab slave trade, so we have to go save these Congolese. Trump is saying to the cameras, Congolese have been killing themselves with machetes. That's what he said to the press, which is not the truth, right? There is a war of aggression. So they're creating a narrative of what the conflict is about, but in the end, they are getting access to lithium, to cobalt, to copper, even our national parks, in the name of peace. It's a business deal. It is not a peace deal.
Right. So that brother there, he really summed it up in a few minutes, and I really want to share that clip here, just to kind of shamelessly promote Brother Shakara, who does a great job, and at the same time give us some pretext to have a discussion on. So before we really open it up, I just want to say it's very important that the brother explained that they always need a narrative. They always paint a narrative to justify their invasion, to justify their interference in Africa's affairs. In the case of the Congo and in the case of Rwanda right now, in the current so-called peace treaty, it's similar. It's very, very similar. I found it very important for that clip to be showed, simply because he made the correlation between Leopold and the way that they justified entering, saying that they're going to fight the slave trade, they're going to fight the Arab slave traders, and then he ended up with the whole Congo as his personal possession. And then now you see Donald Trump doing the same similar kind of thing. And you also see the people, you see the government, the state in the Congo capitulating, giving over its sovereignty for whatever gains it plans to get. And so I think my stand, my opening statement is no peace, no freedom, no peace. If our people are still fighting and our people are still suffering, then they can't be free. If they're still fighting and still suffering, then they can't be free. And so there's no way that, you know, the U.S. imperialist leader can declare that he has created peace or negotiated and secured peace in the Congo, between the Congo and Rwanda. And in fact, that struggle still continues. But I want to open it up to PG and to Senghor to chime in as well.
Well, I concur the peace was on time and on target. But I think what we want our people to understand, no, not only can't a European or someone outside of Africa work for the peace of Africa, that's incumbent upon us as African people. We have to take a moment and reject the things that we've allowed to separate us. We deal with false boundaries, which we use as a separation to establish our independence. But you can't be independent if I'm not independent. We can't be free if we all aren't free. When you talk about the conflict in the Congo, let's understand it was orchestrated by a European nation. It was orchestrated in order to control the minerals of the area, because without those minerals, things that we consistently use would not function, would not happen. They used Africa also to manipulate gold prices because they also want to try to control how we function. They want to control the oil reserves that are on the continent of Africa. Every mineral on the continent of Africa feeds the entire world. We should be controlling our own destiny, but we have a tendency to get in our way, trying to be like the other guy.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah, you're right, man. PG. And you know, I just want to make sure everybody understands the Congo is the heart of Africa. Yes. It's the heart of Africa, which makes it the heart of the world. Mm-hmm. Because Africa is needed all over the world for the world to survive. And this whole divide and conquer thing, as you so clearly articulated, Chief, goes all the way back to when Belgium killed so many Africans and created a scenario that they were coming to save Africans. So like you say, there is no freedom, there is no peace. There is no peace.
It has been the pretext. It has been the pretext throughout the Ma'afa that the European was trying to help bring peace to Africa by helping one side against the other side.
Exactly.
This is how they justified and rationalized even slavery before colonization.
Exactly.
That they would help their trade partners bring peace to their regions, and that bringing peace meant that they would get the guns to go out and fight against their neighbors, and they would be rewarded for giving over the captives. And so it's the same justification coming from the same Eurocentric culture in a whole new time. And we just really got to call it out for what it is. The Congo, particularly for Africans in the diaspora, is probably our main gene pool. They took more Africans from the Congo, from DRC, from Gabon, Angola, than they took from any other region in numbers, especially when you're talking about the United States. Some would say up to about 39% of the ancestry of African Americans originated in what we call the Congo today. So I don't think it's a miracle. I mean, how you say, a mystery that we'll find ourselves right slam in the middle of this discussion. But like you said, we're talking about the Congo right now, the lithium, the cobalt, the coltan.
Yes.
The minerals itself is what got us online right now. The minerals itself is what has taken the whole world into the infotech era.
That's right.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, if to talk about the technology, the minerals is what they needed in order to apply their scientific theories. They needed the minerals. They had the theory, but they needed the minerals. We had the minerals. Had we had unity, we would have not only have had the minerals, we would have had the technology, and we would have been in the forefront of building and instituting what they claim. We are the first scientists, and we are currently more scientific. We just continuously have the same peace boundaries in our way. So I say that to say that when we look at Africa and we look at the Congo and you look at the rest of the world, take away the Congo, and not only are we not online on this today, the rest of the world is still living with candles.
Absolutely. And that's why
Absolutely.
I said, that's why I tried to make it plain about Congo is the heart of Africa. It's the heart of the world. And first of all these lies that Yurugu has been telling for so long, and it's coming to fore in people's eyes, but they got to understand that the Congo is needed by the billionaires to continue to exploit the resources and to kill humanity.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, how you going to be going into the Congo and bringing peace and you ain't got peace nowhere else where Africans are? And I want to say that because Africans are being grabbed off the streets in America right now, in the North America, being attacked, being killed, black men, black women being grabbed. So when you go into a place where we are the majority people, and we are being killed in numbers and being forced to fight one another over nothing. When I say over nothing, I mean they create the Urugu creates the scenario that there's something to fight over, but the reality is they want us to fight while they steal all the resources. So we need to be absolutely clear that what affects our Africans on the Congo is affecting us outside of the Congo, all over the world. So every African's heart is being punished by Trump. And let's be very clear, Trump is a pawn for Project 2025. I want to make that profoundly clear, because sometimes we get caught up in the individual. Individuals can't do nothing but represent a collective. And unfortunately, the folks who put together 2025 are certainly happy that the Democratic Party under Biden started the process of setting the stage for what the Reptilian Party led by Trump are doing in the Congo right now. So we want to be very clear. It's not about the party lines. It's about all of the Urugus that are billionaires and want to continue to steal. And as y'all said, there would be no technology. There would be no cell phones. There would be no computers. There would be none of that without the resources that come from the Congo. And our people are not even getting proper food, clothing, shelter, and protection. So our heart is bleeding in Africa.
If I also may, because you mentioned Project 2025, that was designed in order to try to rekindle a white America. What they want, a white America. It was put together to eliminate assistance to states, to eliminate assistance to children of African descent, Hispanic, Puerto Rican. It was designed to try to turn the tide. It is trying to do what they attempted to do in the war between the blue and the gray, the Confederacy. So they took that theory and tried to become more modern or scientific to say. And also they realized that most folks wouldn't read it and wouldn't understand it. But inside of Project 2025, they laid out their course for addressing Africa and how they wanted to take Africa to a different position and utilize the terminology, let's do business, and then therefore doing business give you a false sense of some independence, yet you are still only a neo-colonial state on the continent that needs to be a one nation, and they are utilizing their technology and their entity and their thrust and their thirst for power and control and still trying to play the mind game. Well, we smarter than that. We smarter than the mind game. It's just that now the men and women who are in the leadership on the continent of Africa has to be smarter than the mind game. See, because they didn't go to the Congo to try to get peace. They went to the Congo in order to get minerals. Getting peace was a sidebar, but they didn't do that work. That's
Yeah,
the game. See, so getting past the game is the challenge. But we are trying to expose that every time we do one of these roundtables. We're saying, look at these truths. It is true that in Congo, the world revolves. It's true. That's where the mineral wealths are. But not only Congo, Sierra Leone,
That's
Liberia,
right. That's
every
right.
nation, every state on the continent of
that's
Africa
right.
has something that's more valuable to the rest of the world. We just have to control our resources. And
Absolutely.
when we really start looking at controlling the resources, then when you say no freedom, no peace, we will also say no freedom, no peace, no minerals, shut your shit down.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, get out of here. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we got more I got more videos here that I want to show. We talked about the Congo a little bit, and but the conversation I think I really want us to talk about is this ECOWAS AES situation. Now I got two videos. One of the videos is almost 10 minutes long, but we gotta watch it. I'm telling you, this brother, he summarizes it in such a eloquent way, and it'll help us have a great conversation about it. The other one is about 4 minutes long. This is more like the mainstream media ECOWAS viewpoint version um, of President uh, Medai of Sierra Leone becoming the new chairman for ECOWAS. So I think first what we will do is watch the longer one, and then we can segue into the conversation around the current situation, the current standoff as it is right now. And just to pretext it for those who are just chiming in, this platform is all about political education. You can correct us if we're wrong. You can ask questions in the comment section. We value your attention. But at the same time, I want to also say this. There is a diversity of ideals, or let me say positions, around the AES, around ECOWAS, that's out there. A lot of people are seeking to understand it, but they don't know what ECOWAS is, and they don't know what AES is. And this brother is about to break it down. But I just wanted before he does it, I want to add this first because I don't think he really touches on it in a way that I want our viewers to get it right. And is that ECOWAS is 50 years old. In 1975, ECOWAS was created. ECOWAS came out of the ideal that instead of seeking first the political kingdom, like Kwame Nkrumah said, that they would stay isolated nation states with the previous colonial borders intact, and instead seek to build African unity based on economics and regions. So economic regions. So all over Africa, you have these economic regions. You have them in East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa. And here in West Africa, you have ECOWAS, which means the Economic Community of West African States. That's what it means. Until recently, there were 15 of these states. When Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso broke away, it's now 12 states in ECOWAS. Guinea is currently suspended from ECOWAS. So they're not considered to be the chairperson or be anything involved. They're suspended because they're also under a junta leader. And so there's a connection between the Western form of democracy being imposed on modern African nation states and the struggle of the people to overthrow, by any means necessary, the kind of relationship where all the resources leave and the people get left with poverty. So there's a real serious dynamic here that we're analyzing. And so for the last 50 years, ECOWAS has been there managing the economic affairs of West Africa. They have conventions. They just had their 67th convention. They get together and they're almost like a regional government. Inside of the ECOWAS, they also have a military arm. There's a military arm. So whenever they feel as though they need to squad up and put down something in the region, they can do it. They've done it in Liberia. They've done it in the case of Sierra Leone as well, which we'll be touching on, as we continue. Recently, ECOWAS, the AES has imposed a 0.5% tax on a tariff on all goods coming from ECOWAS countries. So now the AES is taxing the ECOWAS countries. It has turned all the way around from the embargoes. Now AES is taxing. Complete turnaround of power and relationship. And then Ghana as well was reputed as moving closer and closer to the AES as well. So there's a lot going on in the region, but the whole selection of Sierra Leone's president has to be understood within the context of what's happening. Togo is in fire. The Cameroon, which isn't even part of ECOWAS, but still is important because it's part of Africa, is also on fire. You have Ghana, which is going closer to AES. You have Nigeria, which is just completely failed in its role as head of ECOWAS. You have what's happening in Senegal, where they don't know if the Senegalese are trustworthy with the West. They're not certain. And then here you have Sierra Leone, you have Liberia, you have Ivory Coast. Now Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, and Guinea. These four countries make up what you call the Mono River Union. They make up a sub-region, just like the AES, and they're coastal. So Ivory Coast, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. Very, very important region. Very, very important region. And so this Liberia and Sierra Leone is also the region that has the most closest relationship historically to the West. And one of the connections is the connection that they have with our ancestry being brought back here centuries ago. So you had wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone in the 80s and the 90s. All the way up to the 2000s, you had wars being fought here in these countries. And the wars that were being fought here brought a whole bunch of international military forces here, a whole bunch of UN, a whole bunch of this. So they had a military buildup in this region. Later on, when you had Ebola, you had another military buildup in this region. When Ebola happened, they didn't bring medicine. They brought soldiers. And so now you have a military buildup that maybe we haven't been paying attention to, very close to the AES, and now you have the president of Sierra Leone as the chairperson, and they're being put against each other. And we know, like you were saying earlier, Baba Senghor and PG, that's not our natural thing. Usually we try to find the best ways to collaborate and move together. But when it's an outsider setting the table, it's poison in somebody's drink.
Yeah, all right.
Somebody's drink is poison, and we're going to blame the other side, and we're going to fight it out until whenever. And so it's a setup. However, there's been a lot of feedback from it. So I want to go into this video real quick, and then we'll come back and have a detailed conversation, all right?
All right.
All right.
Now, there is an unfortunate silent conflict going on in West Africa that needs to be discussed, ladies and gentlemen. This is about the economic community of West African states, which is ECOWAS and the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES. I describe this as unfortunate because this is a situation of two groups of countries with a common enemy who should know better. However, the older group is deliberately and unfortunately more concerned about the stance of the younger group way more than focusing on the activities of their shared enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, ECOWAS is the father, AES is the prodigal son, and terrorism plus imperialism are their enemies, their shared enemies. The father is 50 and the son is 2 years old, and here is how they differ. ECOWAS is about economic and political union, whereas the AES is strictly about military defense alliance. So their priorities aren't the same by definition. ECOWAS is against coups, and the AES is a product of coups. Ladies and gentlemen, what actually differentiates these two groups is a matter of their partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, ECOWAS has partners and sponsors who are the EU, the UN, and France. whereas the AES abhors these partners and rather sides with their rival, Russia. This is the fundamental reason ECOWAS and its partners wants to do anything possible to disband this group, including setting the stage for these three presidents to be toppled. Ladies and gentlemen, they could have been lenient or easy on them if their alliance was neutral or with another Western country. But with Russia, that is a threat to their investment, their activities, and their overall plans for the region. Ladies and gentlemen, ECOWAS, as I've read and understand over the years, isn't what I thought it was. ECOWAS appears to be interested in democracy, as it were. But when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, they are only interested in the outer system of democracy, but not the practice of democracy, as in what the people want. Let me explain, ladies and gentlemen. The leadership of the Sahel region clearly have the support of their people, even though their entry wasn't the preferred choice. The people actually like how things are being run and how things have turned out to be. But you see, ECOWAS isn't happy with that. And here is why. The idea of having a military president as a neighbor is not always a convenient feeling for these guys. There arises this fear of the unexpected crossing borders into other countries, ladies and gentlemen. This therefore becomes a reason to be on a constant alert. And if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana's former president, having had this feeling, was seen in a video reporting Burkina Faso's military leadership to the USA.
Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. I believe a mine in southern Burkina has been allocated to them as a form of payment for their services. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. Apart from not accepting the idea of great powers once again making Africa the theater of operation, we have a particular position that you know about over the Ukraine war.
That is the fear I'm talking about. What the video showed us was about Ghana's former president only. What we don't see is how often other heads of state in Africa reports the AES to their partners in the West, ladies and gentlemen. For this fear reason, ECOWAS is equally as interested in doing whatever it would take to force these countries back into constitutional rule without any regards to the decision of their people. This is where the irony lies, ladies and gentlemen. If democracy is of the people, for the people, and by the people, then shouldn't the people's choice matter in what happens with leadership in their country? So I say ECOWAS isn't about the practice of democracy in West Africa, because it's not about the people's choices, but it's about having a civilian president as a neighbor whose actions will be predictable, ladies and gentlemen. This is therefore what I suspect are the core reasons for pushing for democratic constitutional rule in the Sahel region. Number one is to eradicate the fear of experiencing the actions of these three soldier presidents, which can spill over to other African countries. They fear the army of other African countries may want to look at that and act similarly in their individual countries. Secondly, I suspect the Western partners of ECOWAS are insisting that ECOWAS forces the AES back into the fold. This will help restore access to civil conversations and negotiations over their interest in these countries, ladies and gentlemen. Because so long as the military leadership rule as president of the AES, there cannot be any meaningful negotiations that can be binding and sustainable in the long term. So that's my opinion. African leaders in the ECOWAS don't want to be looking over their shoulders for fear of a spillover into their countries. And their Western partners wants a civilian government to protect their interests in the sub-region. Now, having said this, ladies and gentlemen, let no one fool you, for ECOWAS is only a charade. And I say it with all facts. It is only a tool for a collective control in Africa, just as AU has become. Explain this to me. How can you have a meeting of ECOWAS leaders? Listen to this. How can you have a meeting of ECOWAS leaders and at the meeting provide seating for international observers and donors? Is that a meeting for African solutions or a sponsored meeting under supervision? Help me make sense of that. That's definitely a meeting with leaders who come to the table pre-informed to do the bidding of their foreign friends that are funding them privately. Let's not kid ourselves anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Ghana is in bed with the USA. Nigeria is with France and the UK. And Ivory Coast is an extension of France in Africa, like I always say. And these three are the strongest in ECOWAS in terms of population and GDP. So exactly what are you to expect out of such meetings, ladies and gentlemen? Remember, President Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria was the chairman of ECOWAS since the AES broke away in 2023. And Nigeria is the biggest. From July of 2023 to June of 2025, he was the chairman and tried all manner of tactics to coerce the AES into the community, but failed. He tried with sanctions and failed. There was the economic, financial, and travel sanctions, which failed, and the full economic and border sanctions, which also failed in 2024. Now we have President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone taking over as the new chairman of ECOWAS, which happened in June of this year in Abuja. Ladies and gentlemen, will he go on the same road as Tinubu to try and whip the three leaders in line, or allow the AES to be? But ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, his assignment will not even be up to ECOWAS to decide, but to the donors and partners. What ECOWAS heads must understand is this: the support the AES has garnered goes beyond the three countries, ladies and gentlemen. It goes even beyond Africa. Unlike before, when the narrative could have been controlled, now the floodgates are open to all. The support is global, and if care is not taken, could spark a continental uprising should there be an assassination. Most of the heads of states in Africa don't know how much their people want to kick them out of power. They are very ignorant of the hate many of their people have towards them, and a move like this could be all the people will need to spark that uproar. Ladies and gentlemen, President like Ouattara of the Ivory Coast and foreigner Singbe of Togo have no moral rights to raise an objection against the AES. None. Zero. Nada. President Adama Barrow of the Gambia should mind his business with the challenges in his country. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot of reforms post Yahya Jammeh that needs to be implemented. That hasn't been done yet. He should focus on that. President of Guinea and Guinea-Bissau should focus on their coming elections. President of Guinea, an army colonel who yourself is a transition leader who seized power in 2021, and the President Sissoko of Guinea-Bissau, who won elections in 2019. In yourself, you are an army general and therefore have a lot on your plates. So they should.
All right. So that was the video. That was the 10-minute one, and hopefully y'all appreciated that. It was a brother who seemed to be very passionate, very invested in what's happening, and he touched on certain things. And I know for a fact that we're going to chop it up on. I wanna get the other video out first, and then after that, we don't got no more videos, right? The videos is helping us get to where we're going. Before we get into this next video, like I said, this is from like regular Nigeria news, and I noticed that a lot of people don't get the same information. But I guess because I'm in West Africa, I be getting all kind of local media, all kind of links and stuff like that. But you know, that's where we at with it so far. So I want to also say, Maada Bio, the current president of Sierra Leone, himself was once a young Kouis. During the Sierra Leone civil war, himself and some other young soldiers, low-ranking soldiers, they overthrew the government. They overthrew the government in 1992, and they had a government that they actually ran. And he became head of that government, and ultimately, at the end of him being the head of state, he actually was approached, I believe, by the UN and orchestrated elections and passed power over to a democratically elected president. But when you look, it wasn't really democratic at all. You can have democracy with half the country at war, right? But it was a tactic of the UN so that they could install a democratically elected president. And then he turned the power over to the democratically elected president, quote unquote, that the UN overseen being elected. And then he disappeared. Now that was in 1996. In 2018, Julius Maada Bio won an election and became head of state again. And so he is viewed as like a darling of the West in a sense of their democracy. They view him as the kind of coolest that they would like to deal with because he would transition power back to someone democratically elected. And him having once been even younger than Traore in power as head of state here. And we just going back 2 decades ago, and you realize that in this particular part, Liberia, Sierra Leone, last thing we want is to go back to war.
Right.
People here know what war is. They still smell it in the air. So it's different. And so I can see the West choosing specifically Julius Maada Bio for that reason alone. But there's also other reasons. Africa now has a temporary observation seat at the UN Security Council.
What?
That comes as a consequence of Julius Maada Bio and the Sierra Leone government pushing along with the AU. So the first Sierra Leone right now has that seat. Next year, that seat will be going to Liberia.
Yeah.
So the president in Liberia, President Boykai, who also went to school in Sierra Leone, and some people say he's a Sierra Leonean, is the power that is now shifting right to the country next door. So there's something happening in these two countries with the international community. Now, Maada Bio also is considered by some to be a progressive, to be a moderate pan-Africanist because of some of the things that he's done, like open up citizenship to members of the diaspora who can prove that they have ancestry here. Some of the things that he said, some of the things that his wife, the first lady, have said have been very critical and sounds very, hardcore pan-Africanist. And so some people see him like that as well. We have to see how he will perform in this chairmanship. We can't prejudge at this point, but I'll tell you that the West has no other option. They have no other option. Out of the 15 countries, when you lose the 3 AES countries and you lose Guinea, you have 11 more. You just lost Nigeria. They don't have the chairmanship anymore. Ghana looked like they want to go to the AES. It's only Sierra Leone that you can look to. And for those who don't know, Sierra Leone is called the Athens of West Africa. Europeans call it that because this is where they first created the colonial system. This is where they created the relationships between Britain and Africans and people who came back, and they started creating this colonial model that they came back later with arms and enforced. But they started colonizing the continent here. You understand? So let me get to the video and then we'll get right back to the discussion. All right.
Good evening and welcome to TVC News at 10. Edition features our Sunday specials. I am Esther Mapariola. Now, President Bola Tinubu has handed over the chairmanship of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government to President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, expressing confidence in the region's continued path towards peace, stability and prosperity. The ECOWAS Authority's 67th ordinary session closed with a symbolic handover of the emblem to the incoming chair. President Tinubu also highlighted major milestones during his leadership of the regional bloc. And TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde reports.
For President Bola Tinubu, it was a profound honor and privilege to have led the esteemed regional bloc, adding that he remained deeply humbled by the trust and support extended to him throughout his two-term tenure. Now the president of Sierra Leone will steer the affairs of ECOWAS as it seeks to enhance regional integration and cooperation, and it is also facing existential security threats from terror groups.
We must equally confront the stark and persistent challenges that continue to impede our aspirations. Foremost among them at the moment are the security threats, violent extremism, and other cross-border crimes that have continued to widen and deepen in their intensity.
In parts of our region, the constitutional order has been disrupted. Yet, across West Africa, citizens, especially our youth, are demanding not just elections, but accountability, transparency, and a fair stake in national life.
After an eventful two-year tenure as chairman of ECOWAS, President Bola Tinubu expressed deep concern over the slow pace of activating the ECOWAS standby force. He urged West African leaders to swiftly transition from concept to reality in the collective fight against terrorism and transnational crimes, emphasizing the urgency of operationalizing the force amid escalating insecurity across the sub-region.
No single nation can therefore address these challenges alone. We must strengthen coordination, amplify political will, and prioritize a collective approach to security. This is why the ECOWAS standby force must move from the concept to operational reality now. I am a little bit worried about the slow pace of its activation, which is taking longer than desired.
It would be difficult to point to the causes of the hike in attacks, but what I can say for sure is that the threat we are facing cannot be handled by one country alone. This is why joint efforts are important, and this is why the President is saying that we need to act fast on the ECOWAS standby force.
President Tinubu emphasized the need to preserve democratic values and ensure that political stability is not separated from economic development. He called for the speedy implementation of key regional infrastructure projects, including the West Africa Gas Pipeline, West Africa Power Pool, and Abidjan-Lagos Corridor Highway as catalysts for development.
All right. So I wanted to be fair and show two different perspectives of media and then open it up. I have nothing else to say. I'm really wanting to hear from you two.
Well, I'm going to be straight. I want to keep it plain, brother. You can see that last video that you showed, a whole lot of Africans that have been hoodwinked by Urugu, period. In terms of the first one that you showed, you could also hear the passion in our brother. I don't know his name, but you could hear the passion and you could hear the blacktricity and the spirit in his remarks about some of the factual things that I've come to see that are going on. So I would just say that it's important for our people to really see through our people that have been hoodwinked and tricked to follow so-called demonocracy. I'm not going to call it democracy because it's not. It's demonocracy. And that is when anybody outside of your house tells you what to do inside of your house and oversees what you do, then they are in control. They're not a partner. They're in control. And we need to be very careful about that because that's what's got us in the mess that we're in right now with the so-called borders that were done during the so-called Berlin Conference. Now, I've been told by some brothers and sisters some things about that whole situation where they weren't only fighting each other, they were actually cooperating with each other to share how they were going to continue to neocolonialize the continent.
Absolutely.
Now, and I want to say that because it's important, because we're dealing with the same issue. It has just come up into modern times, and that we have the consciousness that's growing amongst Africans all around the world that we ain't tolerating this foolishness being hoodwinked no more. We're going back to our ancestral roots, and we're waking up. So that's what we see happening in the Sahel states, because they are following what the people want.
Right.
Is autonomous sovereign control.
And
now, let me say this, PG, real quickly. I understand that they try to play the Urugu fight in this game by always talking about Russia. But as African people, we can deal with whoever we want in business when we want, but we don't let them control how we're moving forward. And so it's not about the Urugu's fight. It's about our fight to get back to our sovereign control and follow what Marcus Garvey told us, and to be able to deal with our own willpower and nobody outside of us, including Europe, France, America, and all of the Urugus that are striving to control, even in their own regions, African people, because technically speaking, we rule the world. But we're on the bottom of the rung of the Urugu's plan, because without us, they can't survive. And we understand that clearly, but they want us to be a replica of them, and become black Urugus, where we give away the rights of sovereignty to the people. Anyway, I'll stop right there, because PG, I know you wanted to come in, but I wanted to make it plain that hey, that second one is definitely shows how we've been hoodwinked.
What I want to do, because I have to leave, is comment similarly to you. I won't take away anything from what you put out or Chief, but just if I can add, one of the things we have to recognize is how this was done to us. See, and I think sometimes we miss that historical piece of how it was done to us. The Berlin Conference was one step. The false lines was one step. That was the education that was provided to you in whatever place you were by the Urugu was the next step. So you were educated to be different and to think you better. Right. So the first brother, I agree with you, his passion was, you could read it, you could feel it. The energy was live. In the second video, I looked and I saw black men doing things that I see white men do. What I see. And again, if they can build the unity and the force that's necessary, I support that. I support us coming together, but they also need to recognize that the youth of Africa aren't going to wait to be 59, 60 years old to receive some freedom. They're not going to wait. The challenges that they face, the upheavals that are happening because the youth are hungry, and feeding them the negativities of the European West. And that's where drugs come from. That's where that dependency comes from. It comes from that European West. Yeah, because the European, in developing the pharmaceutical companies, built drugs as the means of medicine and also the means of control. Let me control this. Let me control that. So I use that. And then we're now falling into, we have fallen into that same mainstay. So even the step at the UN, it's an observership. You don't have a vote. You don't have a damn voice. You go there to observe. Well, shit, I don't have to go there to observe. I can observe the shit that's happening in my country and know what's happening next door. Sierra Leone knows what's going on in Liberia. We know that. We know what's going on in West Africa. We know that. We understand that. So let us move forward and start building what we need. If those men who sat down and exchanged the what you call it, the control people, you know, if they were going to sit there and have conversation, let's sit there and have real conversation. How do I and you become one? And then how do we merge and become one with the next? See, so that we can stop the separation. Let's eliminate the borders, bring in unity. I'm not going to say we need to bring it back, because prior to the colonialism, Africa was still struggling with Africa. So
Absolutely.
we got to go look at that and say, okay, how do we march forward in an African frame of reference? Marcus Messiah Garvey and those men and women of his time, and the men and women that came before him, not just Marcus, who put forth a one Africa concept, a one Africa concept. Those men and women are those that we need to kind of focus on to help shape what is going on the continent of Africa today. So, yeah, I mean, I love to see the unity, but I want to see unity.
Come on with it. That's right.
Brother Sam, how you doing, brother?
Salute,
PG,
Sam.
man, and Segura, y'all both touched on something important. Hey, Sam, you right on time, brother. I hope you was watching, so you know what we got going on, right? I know Baba Achilles, he got to get out of here, so you came right right on time, bro.
Oh yeah,
and we're talking about the region. We're talking about what's going on right now between ECOWAS and AES, and the overall significance of the standoff, the apparent standoff. You know, it appears to be a serious standoff. And just in the last video, you seen that Tinubu was calling for the standby force to be activated. Because I've been here, I've been watching the standby force accumulate. Liberia had a standby force. Sierra Leone has a standby force. They've been putting standby military forces in the countries of ECOWAS just in case when they're ready to make a military attack against the AES. It's been happening. Some of us have been monitoring it, keeping track of it. And one of them that I know who is very well versed in this situation is Brother Sam P.K. Collins. Man, welcome, brother. Your input is very valuable.
Salute, Sam.
How y'all doing? Everybody good?
Yes, sir. Good to see some fresh young Blacktricity blood in the house. Because me and the PG was chopping it up, but I know we all on one accord. But it's going to be good to hear your reasoning because it's a serious thing happening amongst our young people, and we don't need them to be as hoodwinked as some of our older brothers and sisters are we just experienced that are hoodwinked to follow the whims of a demonocracy. But I'm gonna stop right there and let you take it away.
No doubt. We definitely got to give all things some praises. Today's a very significant day, especially for Liberia. 178 years of independence, July 26, 1847. So Liberia is a very, as it relates to the ECOWAS AES situation, Liberia is very crucial in the sense that I would say since not since day one, but maybe since like day 10, Liberia has in a sense been in the US's pocket. So, we definitely got to acknowledge that. But there is definitely a Pan-African fervor on the ground. People overstand. To a point that Chief was making earlier about how race is sort of this taboo topic on the continent. I think Liberians are among the few who have an overstanding of race. Despite the white missionaries in the churches, Liberians, they overstand. They see the Lebanese coming in. They see the Chinese mining and destroying infrastructure and taking away land. So they overstand what's going on. And the battle that we got to watch out for is that Negro clause. The vice president of Liberia, Joseph Kong, he made a tour in the Liberian diaspora, so different parts of the U.S. where Liberians are very populous. And this was earlier this year. And among his agenda items was eradicating the Negro clause, because by eradicating it, it would further encourage foreign investment, quote unquote, foreign investment. But that's not really investment, So I think that the whole race first philosophy definitely, needs to come in effect. It without question. Now, again, to the AES ECOWAS situation, I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with Sierra Leone at this point in time being what I call the capital of ECOWAS. I sort of want to see it because Sierra Leone definitely has that grassroots Pan-African fervor. I see, especially within the administration to some degree, there is some acknowledgement within the upper echelons of the administration about what's going on as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned. It's the other ECOWAS countries that I'm more so concerned about, especially given what we saw when 5 of them showed up and talked to Donald Trump that day. It's just, and And the issue that we got before us is one more so about education and just institutions, because you know, there's pockets of us in the grassroots that need to unite around institution building and just creating something that can be an alternative to all of this.
Absolutely.
You know, so like that's just what's been on my mind. And I'm looking very closely at the AES. You know, I wish, you know, the three commander in chiefs very well, especially Burkina Faso as it relates to its transition to a civilian government, because that's going to be the real test. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm giving more of a nuanced view. So last year, you know, there was talks about making that transition within a year, but they pushed it back 5 years. And part of that is because of the jihadists, what they call the jihadists, you know, assaults or whatever else the case is. So, you know, there's a lot that we as a people have to take into account. And part of that for us in the diaspora is having a better understanding, a nuanced, unemotional understanding of the geopolitics
of the region,
on the continent. Exactly, because the jihadists, that's going to be like that's the wild card. They're the ones that they point to as the reason why they want to intervene in the region, right? And like that was the criticism about why Burkina Faso, Mali, and whoever else, you know, couldn't. That was part of the criticism that brought the way for the coups, you know, because
absolutely
around whether to, you know, stem that. So we never, so we often disregard that. You know, how can we coming in as, you know, agents of change? Because first you make the change, but now it's about maintaining it. And our capacity for self-governance gets tested a lot because there's just things within us that we haven't quite reconciled yet. So I'm really looking forward to like what I'll just stop here. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ibrahim Traore, you know, and his comrades in the AES can do within the next 5 years, you know, because that's going to be the test for real.
Yeah, it looks like Chief kind of dropped out. I guess he'll come back in. But yeah, you here he comes. But you right on point, Sam, with what you said in terms of that, and it blended with what we had already been reasoning on. So, Chief, I see you back.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, man, you know, you summed up a lot very, 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 very rapidly, rapid fire, man. But what I want to say on top of what you said was that there's always been somewhat of an underground pan-Africanist undercurrent. And in the case of Sierra Leone, for those who don't know, they were under a one-party dictatorship for some years, and the people wanted, quote-unquote, democracy. They wanted to be able to have their political parties and be able to vote their own leaders and stuff, right? They really wanted it. But they was controlled by a one-party dictatorship. And until 1991, where a rebellion began, where a war began, the people in Sierra Leone was pretty much very oppressed politically, very oppressed by that situation politically. And so even back then, to understand it, even back then, you had Pan-Africanists actively involved. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, organizations like Pan-Afro popped up on university campuses here in Sierra Leone, the Pan-African Union. They began to study the Green Book of Muammar Gaddafi as an alternative way to deal with the system. They studied the Green Book. Now, if you know about the Black Panther Party, they studied the Red Book. You understand? So
exactly. Chief, you muted. Can y'all hear Chief? I can't hear him. Now that's a big point to make. A lot of good points on that. You know, I'm very enthusiastic about the grassroots Pan-African support, and you know what the comrades on the continent are doing. I think that people
is back
now.
Yeah, y'all hold. Y'all hold it down for a minute. I'll be right back.
All right. So what I was saying was that you know, there's always been Pan-Africanists deeply involved in the struggle within these countries. I read at one time that even the brother who overthrew Tobert, that he
Sam Doe.
Yeah, Sammy Doe attended a Marcus Garvey school. From what I understand, like he attended a school where he was sensitized or at least exposed to the ideals of Garveyism. And that may have even, fueled his understanding that the people need to have sovereignty. That this one party, look, Sierra Leone had a 13-year one-party government. They overthrew it.
Yeah.
Liberia had a 100-year one-party government. And Sammy Doe happened to be the individual that overthrew it, and he attended the Marcus Garvey school. So there's aspects of Garveyism or Pan-Africanism or people who were connected to the ideals within all this struggle. Here in Sierra Leone, the Pan-Africanists took a position that was more closely related to like Kwame Nkrumah and the AAPRP. Their politics really resemble that revolutionary socialist type of Pan-Africanism, right?
Yeah.
But they're small in number. So back in the day, man, they had banned all the political parties. They was firebombing the newspaper companies. They was really like suppressing any dissent. And so the students at FBC started organizing themselves around the Libya Green Book, and they started a group called the Pan-African Union. Members of the organization are still around, but they were the ones who started keeping African Liberation Days in the midst of the one-party state. They started pushing and championing Pan-Africanism. And it got to the point that they got suppressed, and then that group split. Half of the group, or some of the group, said they needed to go the path of armed struggle. And they answered the call of Gaddafi, and they went to Libya and built a little army, went through Burkina Faso, fought in Liberia, and ultimately ended up bringing the war into Sierra Leone. People don't typically know that. So that's one reason why I'm emphasizing it, that these two countries know war. There's no doubt about it. Now, it might not be terrorism in the sense that the AES is dealing with it, but internal civil war, deep crisis war that you can't separate from colonialism, that you can't separate from the West, from imperialism. Sierra Leone and Liberia are a perfect case study for what we're seeing right now. And so it's important to see that these are also the two countries that are being situated to address the situation with the AES. Exactly. These are also the two governments that the United States and the UN is trying to use to build a base around confronting the AES.
So it's interesting, Chief, that what you just shared is so interesting because, we know our ancestors are very much alive and working. And because of that region and the history of Sierra Leone and Liberia, where it relates to Africans worldwide, particularly Africans in the West, is very, very important. And I just wanted to mention that because some people outside of Africa, of course, we're Pan-Africanists, but a lot of people outside of Africa don't understand why it's important for us to be aware of what is going on in Africa, because we are definitely connected. I'm not going to throw no stones, but there's some of our people that are caught in this divisiveness that Yurugu does and try to divide us. We want one Africa. We want African people.
Oh yeah.
And the practical Pan-Africanism that we need is for us to continue to become conscious that our brother, we must practice Mahat and we must practice Mobutu, meaning we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, and they are our keeper, and we must be one. And that is very, very important. That's why it always relates back to the people. But historically, absolutely, with you and Sam here dropping the science about what's going on right now, today, it's important for us to recognize that our ancestors are working too. And particularly our ancestors that have ancestral ties to Sierra Leone and Liberia. That's very, very important, because that ancestral energy is working. And sometimes our people are asleep on that. They think that they're gone, but our ancestors are very much alive in the spirit world, and they work in their mojo. We need to be connected to that energy and to not be hoodwinked like some of our other older brothers and sisters have gotten hoodwinked to forget about the power of our ancestors and how important it is for us to get rid of what I would call the lack of self-determination, the lack of Kujuchakalia, the lack of building for ourselves. And we don't need outside forces telling us what to do. And that's very, very important. I just want to make it plain so people that's listening don't get caught up in not hearing what we're saying. Malcolm told us, Thomas Sankara told us, Kwame Nkrumah told us, Marcus Garvey told us, Queen Nzinga told us, Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines. I mean, we could go down the line. It's so many. Sobukwe, you know what I mean? Edward Wilmot Blyden, you know what I'm saying? They told us. They told us the direction we should be going in to become sovereign and control Africa. Yes, and that's why we got to be race first. I'm glad Sam mentioned that earlier, because we got a big race first conference coming up that the Pan-African Liberation Movement has pulled together for us to do in Baltimore. That's important. And people got to understand, we understand that all humanity comes from Africans. We understand that. But we understand we are the epitome of the human race. But because Urugu broke it up into Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Africanoid and made it races, we have to deal with that in terms of their language. But let's be very clear. We are the first people and we will be the last people. So no matter how many people you might kill and push into the ancestral realm, we coming after you, Urugu.
Absolutely.
So just be aware. And I want our brothers and sisters to understand, despite all of the tragedy that's going on amongst our people around the world, we're gonna win. We're gonna win. Absolutely. It's just how long we're gonna continue to let them kill us while we stand aside and look and not raise up the energy and address this issue, because they are afraid and they are falling. That's why they're doing all the scrambling they're doing right now, and they're scrambling to control Africa. Oh yeah, and they're struggling to control the minds of African people all around the world. And we need to be clear.
Especially those of us in the States, those of us in the citadel of white supremacy today, they're playing a mind game with us. They have us arguing and debating over identity, while we have the biggest opportunity to move forward on the continent that's been presented and sacrificed for centuries. And so, it's a big thing. Now, like you were saying about the race first rallies and us getting together, I like that Sam brought up the fact that race first. We need to generate that on the continent, because in the midst of all this ECOWAS, AES, and Rwanda and Congo, the only antidote to it, the true remedy to it all, is practical Pan-Africanism. It's genuine grassroots Pan-Africanism across the board, across the continent. Now we need to create programs, institutions, develop resources to achieve that. And so it means we got to be hands-on involved at the grassroots. One of the reasons that I came to Africa, because I want to be hands-on involved at the grassroots. I want to gain my knowledge from experiencing grassroots activism in Africa. And so I can have that insight to offer in my analysis. It's very, very important, because everybody can't come here and everybody can't make the analysis, right? And so these two countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, we really need to contextualize these as the African diaspora as a whole, and realize that these are the strategic points that the West believes they can always count on to serve the interests of the West. These are the places we really need to rescue ASAP, because if you think about race first ideology, these are the only two countries in the world with Negro clauses.
Teach.
Only two countries in the world that if you ain't a Negro, you can't be a citizen. If you can't be a citizen, you can't hold land, you can't vote, can't be elected. They're barred from power permanently by the Constitution. And so that's the significance of it. When Brother Sam is saying the vice president is running around promoting and tapping and trying to get rid of it, that's a major issue. The whole Pan-African world needs to understand what that is, because even when Garvey was planning on going back, it was based on that Negro clause.
That's right. That's right.
They had the constitutional right to welcome us because of the Constitution, because of the Negro clause.
That's right.
And so let's know where and how we can take these issues, Pan-Africanize them, and get our young activists on the ground in these countries active. We got young activists right now in Kenya, young activists right now in Burkina Faso, in Ghana, you name the country. Universal African Nationalist, the UNIAACL RC 2020. We got hands in a lot of these different places. We need to begin to reach out to these young youth and empower them in ways that can really empower them. One of the ways is technological education. Technology can go far on the continent because people have a whole lot of time. And if they know what to do with that time, oh man, we could build a very serious movement on the ground. And if you look, it's happening already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's got to be increased. You hit the nail on the head when you hit it. It's got to be increased. We have to look at it pan-Africanism from a practical perspective. And if you can't get on a plane, you can also get your mind and your behind organized wherever you are and get people focused on how to support programs and institutions that are being built on the ground in Africa. Because if you're going to repatriate, it's best for you to start organizing there before you go there, if you hear what I'm saying.
Right.
You know, and then you got to visit there, of course. But if you start organizing by investing in various different things going on the ground on the continent, you stand a better job of being accepted as a family member when you come back, when you are providing ways and means of sustenance for the people to move forward past just survival. Because why should we be struggling to survive when the whole world survives off of Africa? We shouldn't be struggling to survive as Africans. And to get to that, we have to do, as Sam said earlier, we have to educate, we have to raise the consciousness, we have to let the young people be clear on the political, geopolitical issues, and we have to make sure we provide support for them. And I'm not just talking about economically, we have to bring our minds back into Africa, regardless to where we are, Chief. And that is so important what you were just saying about Liberia and Sierra Leone, because that's our root.
And both places get left out too. You know, after 1957, Ghana took the helm as the home of repatriation and Pan-Africanism. Because before that, it was Liberia, Sierra Leone, and even Ethiopia. And you could even say Kenya. But after 1957, Ghana took that helm, and they took that into 2019 and on. And the whole repatriation, you know, I would say the spirit of repatriation has gotten soured a bit. Of course, it's still there, but there's a lot of classism involved within the African community. Because those who are repatriating in great number are those who were here in the United States as upper middle class or middle class. They were retirees. They worked for Babylon at some point. So they're there just to build their homes and do them. They're not really there to build up the community. And now we have, and now we have, you know, two epicenters like Ghana and Nigeria with, like, you know, Dirty December and, you know, these other annual events where people are just coming to party. Of course, there's spirit around it, but, you know, as long as Babylon takes a hold of that concept and they're bringing in musicians and they're bringing in other people and agents, you know, who aren't quite aligned with the grassroots, you know, tenor of it, then, you know, repatriation and it stands the risk of not really benefiting the people.
Speak on it, Sam. You're right on it.
Right now, you see, and you know, to a point made earlier about all the debate online that is really bringing us against one another. That debate, I'm always in the mindset that debate is cool only if people have more background information. So, case in point, with people from the diaspora repatriating to the continent, some currencies are getting changed or messed up as a result. It's becoming more expensive for the indigenous local community to live there because of the currency manipulation. But people who complain about that, it's a question of, is it the repatriates causing that, or is it the Babylon government seeing what's happening and manipulating the currency themselves to take full advantage?
Good point. Excellent point.
A lot of us don't really have an understanding of economics to understand that everything is happening in context. You know, so when we had, you know, the 400-year of return, when Liberia did its own thing, you know, again, we had people who were not race first, not Pan-Africanists in the authentic sense of the word, leading these movements and doing these movements through the State Department, which in itself, that is just not the way to go. You know, so it really, you know, I think now, and I'm just saying that because there's a lot of good points made. Like, you definitely got to go in there with something to offer, something to build. You got to go in there starting a business, starting a school.
Exactly.
You know, like, you got to go in there, and, you know, the thing we got to really take into account is the ethnic differences. But even those ethnic differences are manufactured to some extent.
Yeah,
Like
many
I don't
of
know.
them.
I don't know if y'all brought up the Congo situation.
Yeah, we did.
The Houthis and the Tutsis. Like, come on now. Like,
Yeah.
they made that up.
Yes, of course.
They used that. They used Western Christianity to put the Hutus over the Tutsis and to allow for that to happen. Like, it's just we as a people, and the only reason why they got us like that is because we are like the deepest, the most populous racial ethnic group in the world. So of course it's easy to divide us. There's a whole lot of us. But the fact is that we all come from a common source.
Come on.
You know, if you talk about, you know, the Horn of Africa, or if you want to talk about, you know, the Garden of Eden, you know, some Rastafari say that. Like, the fact is that on the African continent, people, they can trace their heritage back different places on the continent. People get so caught up in nationality, they get caught up in ethnicity. It's like, bro, like 2-4 generations ago, you might not even been here. It ain't just us in the diaspora. There's a lot of migration on the continent.
Yes,
there's a lot of like especially if you go to Zimbabwe and South Africa, a lot of them people ain't of that nationality.
Right.
They might have migrated 1 or 2 generations ago from somewhere else. So why is it that we get caught up in that? You know, we need to just start
ethnicity.
We need to stop like accepting their definitions. We need to like look beyond that.
Exactly.
Race first. Race first go a far way. Race first go a long way.
That's
I do a lot of reading on Garvey, man, trying to understand race first deeper and deeper because, you know, we're told that race is a social construct, right? But for me, racism is real as hell because I've experienced it all my life, right? So no matter if it's a social construct or not, it has real consequences in real people's lives, right?
True.
And so I always approach it like that, as if it's a part of a larger political ideology and philosophy that's oppressing us, right? And so if you're oppressing me with a gun and I decide to take the gun and shoot you in the head with it, oh well, same thing with race first. You using race to oppress me, I'm gonna use it to liberate myself. Same thing. Right? The rest of the world doing it. Garvey pointed out that the Chinese do it, the Indians do it, everyone else do it. Why would we do it? You blow the whistle on us. So I think the perfection of race first ideology has to really be, I'd say, contextualized within contemporary geopolitics, because race first right now is really it's the missing element. Even when I see the AES, I don't see a race first thing. I see like a regional thing where, you know, they doing what they gotta do to maintain, you know, their own situation. But I have a lot of questions still because I've been around long enough to ask questions like, okay, what does it mean 10 years from now? Where are they going in the next 15 years? I haven't seen that yet. I see praise and day by day steps being taken, but I don't see the long-term vision. And I see a regional confederation coming towards a federation, which I believe in. Absolutely. The United States of Africa is a federation. But I just don't hear the race first emphasis the way that it would really drive me crazy. I would be driven crazy right now if the movement as a whole was saying certain things. The isolation of Ibrahim Traore as an individual, as a leading figure within the context of the AES, I believe it is a strength for maybe Burkina Faso, but I think that also we don't even know, a lot of people don't even know the names of the president of Niger.
Yes.
They don't know anyone else in these movements. They don't know any of the administrators. They don't know the prime ministers. They can't name the top generals. It's almost like we don't care. We're just watching it on film and choosing a side. You know how the Western world makes us do, right? This against this, and then I like this one. And then we debate back and forth like it's sports, right? That real mediocre, immature, underdeveloped political way of approaching African issues by African people. We got to approach it with the utmost seriousness, like heart surgery.
So,
right? So that's what I'm saying.
That's really important what you're saying, Chief, because as Garvey and many of the Garveyites have taught those of us that are here, you have to be an obedient servant to the needs of the people. And if you're no longer obedient servant to the needs of the people, you're no longer an obedient leader, if you hear what I'm saying. And so we get too caught up in the individual versus the collective. And you mentioned it earlier. We got to build the institutions. We have to build parties. We have to have race first parties. I mean, we need a race first party globally. You know, that we only are dealing with African people. And later on, once we got control of our sovereignty, we can talk about the rest of humanity. But right now, we don't need to do that. Dr. Clark said we have no friends. And that doesn't mean that we can't do business with whoever we do business with, but we cannot let the person that we do business with control the scenario or sit at the table equal to us. See, that's why we got to be race first. I mean, you know, and that's important. And people say, well, you're a racist. Well, hey, come on. As you said it earlier, we didn't create the word racism. We ain't hanging no foreign people in Africa. Marcus Garvey told the Ku Klux Klan, y'all better be careful because we got more trees in Africa. So if you keep hanging out people over there, hey, what happened if, you know, we start hanging your own people? So you got to be very clear when we say race first. We are talking about being peaceful once we have control of our destiny. But right now we being warred on. We being killed, man. So we ain't got time to be playing games with integrating with everybody. Absolutely. To be integrated with everybody when everybody do their own thing. We need to do our thing. African people. Absolutely. Whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in the US, whether you're in the UK, wherever you are on the planet, you need to understand we need to be one African people. And if you don't fall within that, step aside and let us do the work so we can go forward. And you'll learn from us understanding the clear point of Garvey's practical pan-Africanism. I'll stop right there because it's very important for us to keep that in the game. And not only that, the PLM is right on point. They've been doing race first rallies. Now they're doing a race first conference. And a lot of people say, why are you doing a race first conference? I'm telling you why. It's because we need it. Y'all said it. Sierra Leone and Liberia, the only two countries that say you got to be a part of the Negro clause to be a citizen to own land. That is powerful. So we don't want to turn that around. We want to step that up.
You know what's very powerful about it is that the concept is written in law. That is not just a social construct in Liberian law. It's not just a social construct in Sierra Leone law. It's a constitutional mandate. They can give citizenship, which requires land ownership and rights to engage in the political system to any African that meets the standard, the requirements.
Sound like Haiti. Sound like Haiti back in the day when we was moving right. Sounds like
Haiti had the first Negro clause.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so dangerous, and that's why
Haiti inspired the Liberian one.
You know, they really take advantage. Anybody looking on the surface, they might see the the poverty on the ground, and they might, because oftentimes when they tell the story of Liberia, they tell the story of Haiti, Sierra Leone, any majority black place, they talk about it as if it's a failure in self-governance rather than a war tactics being orchestrated on majority black places. You know, so like a lot of our people, because historically we're tired and historically, we've been just hit for generations. Any notion of us coming together as a people, physiologically, some of us can't really stomach that. And, and we look at these places as examples where, okay, Liberia had a civil war, that's an example where black folks try to work with black folks and that didn't work out. But they didn't keep in mind that, within that, there were folks on the outside playing black folks against each other, so like if you look at the situation involving Maryland County and Liberia, so the Gribbo people, the settlers, so-called, and the European traders, they divided the Gribbo into two sects, one that was for, going into Liberia and one that was for standing alone. That's always been the case throughout our history, so I'm saying all of that because the Negro Clause situation is coming at a time where people are having anti-blackness. There's black fatigue going on. You see it right now with the Trump situation, right? With the Trump situation going on, once again, people are disregarding race. People want to come together. You know, that's their thing. They're like, well, no, Trump's hit everybody. Let's all it's really happening, which is why now more than ever, race first is something like as a philosophy that needs to be promoted. But people, the thing about it is that it's not easy though. We got a lot as a people to do to heal. And you know, if you read Scientific Pan-Africanism by Baba Imhotep, he talks about character, right? So how do we as Black people create systems in which we assess people of good character, and those who don't have good character, we police them and we police our own communities? That's always been an issue because, you know, Pan-Africanism and even this current movement, there are people who are not well-meaning who are weaponizing this for their own ego.
Yes.
And that is all over the continent. We as a people being distressed and being downtrodden have always looked for a Messiah. And that Messiah complex has been our undoing. And that's been the undoing, you know, that's the story behind, part of the story behind why majority Black governments have not been able to, you know, fully realize, you know, that in addition to just all the interference, you know. So I'm saying all of that, and one more point I want to make. One thing we got to watch out for, and I say it again, the co-optation of Pan-Africanism, right?
Yes, sir.
And the classism, because they are making Pan-Africanism no longer a grassroots thing. It's going to be something that's academized and put in the upper high class echelons of society, right? So when you see Pan-Africanism, it's not, the more you academize it, you remove it from its original intentions as far as nation building, because that's where it went wrong. You have nationalism, and then when you went to Pan-Africanism, they took the nationalism out and they made it more of like a socialist African unification thing, rather than, you know, us coming together building our own. Not to say that independence wasn't building your own, but when you take out the nationalism part, that's where the race first gets left out.
That's right.
That's the issue. And if you go back, so last point again, I got to bring this point up. 1974, all right. I believe it was the 6th Pan-African Congress. That was the first Pan-African Congress after the wave of independence movement.
64.
It was the 6th.
The 6th. All right, perfect. So there's a schism between the Africans in the diaspora and the Africans on the continent about race. They looked at us in the diaspora as crazy and as emotional because we kept focusing on race. They didn't quite understand why we did that. And what's the point I'm trying to make? There's definitely a point I'm trying to make here. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that race got taken out of the equation. And once we as a people started having our own governments, we took on definitions of class that the Yoruba society had, instead of understanding that we as African people are a class within ourselves. So no matter if you're wealthy or you're poor, you still
belong to the same Negro class.
You're in the same class. So it's not about influence, it's not about popularity, it's about power. And even if you have money as a Black millionaire or a Black politician, as long as we as a people are not unified, as long as we're not building our own systems and having our own collective thoughts and moving as one, you lack power. And that is what we forgot.
That's right. That's right.
And in 74, they discussed race. They discussed multinational corporations coming onto the continent. They discussed socialism versus capitalism. And there were a lot of people in the building because they had power as newly formed countries, and they were at the top. They were their own presidents. They didn't want to listen to any of that. And from 74 on, these conferences became no more than, forgive my language, circle jerks, where people pretty much just patted themselves on the back for doing nothing while the African masses continue to starve. And of course, It's
So,
the IM. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. I just want to make sure. I know it's getting close to the close. I want to put a little plug in there, infomercial. Y'all know we coming up on Mosiah Month, August, Black August, and the UNIA International Convention is going to be held in Banneker City at eLife between August the 13th through the 17th. I want to let all y'all know you can go to www.uniaclrc2020.com. And then also the Race First Rally is coming up in Be More Careful area in Tubman City in the latter part of September with likes of Sister Marimba Ani and others. They're going to be talking about the importance of race first and not just talking about it, but how do we step forward with building it. And then I also want a bit of plug in for the Alkebalan Revivalist Movement doing Mosiah Month in August. And I also want to put a plug in for the One Africa Commission. I have a good brother, Chief Fode, and all the work that's going to be being done on the ground in Sierra Leone and in Ghana and different other places where we may be. It's high time. It's a Leo month. It's the birth of Marcus Garvey month. It's also the birth of Edward Wilmot Blythe. It's also the birth of Runoko Rashidi and so many others. So I want y'all to, despite all of the shortcomings, it's time to close ranks. Use August as just an example of what we need to be doing all the time. Every day we need to be closing ranks, brothers and sisters. So as Sam was so clearly articulated, we don't need to be fussing and fighting online. If you can't hammer it out on the amble of reason, leave it alone. We got young brothers gatting each other, shooting up churches, shooting up things. We got too many things going that are not African. That we have Africans emulating Yorugu and becoming violent. So be careful. Build your black families. I want to throw those plugs in because everything we're talking about right now is critically important. When you're at war, you have to build your family, build your community, have nation building, and you got to connect globally because we got the power. We never been a majority people. We are a we never been a minority people. We are majority people. And together, as Sam say, we got power. And you can't go up against power, white power, without what we call black power. And I say go get your blacktricity, meaning raise your consciousness, tap into your ancestral energy, because we're going to need everything that we got, because they've been killing and robbing and stealing our resources and killing humanity. So when we say we at war, we ain't just talking about defending ourselves. We need to go on the offense. Think about it.
Absolutely. And
Thanks
that's
for that infomercial.
Race first. Race first. Race first. That's what we're talking about. And recognizing that race first is not only our right, but it's our destiny. It's where we're headed. There's no other way. There's no other way forward. In fact, it's the only thing that we failed to do or failed to master to perfection is this race first thing. We are so friendly. We're so open. We're the most humanitarian species on the face of the earth. We truly, genuinely have a good heart about nature and about other people. But at this point, and as long as this white supremacy is lingering on this world, this Yorugu beast is loose. We got to tighten up ranks. It got to be race first, and unapologetically. We don't need permission. That's what sovereignty means. That we determine for ourselves that we're going to do race first. Speaking of race first, man, some people would think it's a racist ideal. It's actually something that is dealing with the reality of the world. I'm telling you, Marcus Garvey made an analysis. Race first is not something he made up. He was observing what was already real in the world. He said the Chinese look out for themselves first. The white man look out for himself first. Even if they have different nationalities and ethnic groups, they look out for whiteness first. And whenever they deal with us and other people outside of their race. Man, he said, let race first be our number one defense mechanism. That race first is our shield. That's how we keep ourselves from getting infiltrated. That's how we keep ourselves from being destroyed from within, from outside forces, right? And so race first is definitely the standard that we have to now really infuse into the Pan-Africanist movement. Sam, you said something about the earlier Pan-African conferences. And what people fail to realize is that there's always been more than one stream of Pan-Africanism developing at the same time. there has been what we call quote unquote pan-Africanism today, the term, which of course came out of an intellectualized movement, a talented 10th kind of movement. There were intellectuals who were intellectualizing about the solutions of Africa. And they begin to have their conferences and get together and talk about it, and they coined the term. At the same time, you had what Brother Sam was calling Black nationalism, what we call universal African nationalism. And we use Haiti as the perfect situation of what we're talking about, the creation of a Black sovereign nation for ourselves, unapologetically, without anyone's permission. That's what we want for the whole race, not just for Haiti. The whole race should have it. And Africa should be our own landmass, our own national territory where we all benefit from. Not just one African country. Because you're a Liberian, you have wholesale rights to what's in Liberia. No, we got to kill this ideal. Liberia is created by the enemy.
Exactly.
And so we got to really be able to get past the ideal of nation statism in Africa. It was deliberately used after 1957 to set pan-Africanism off course. If you remember, you had the Monrovia group.
Yes.
And you had the Casablanca group.
That's
you had two streams of pan-Africanism. And the stream that the West, that the imperialists favor, is a stream that we've been dealing with the last 50 years. And that right there is the one that favors economics, economic community, you know, political independence, nation statehood, nation statism. So we got 54 nation states. Indian people got one nation state for their whole people in the world. China got one nation state for every Chinese person in the world. They're all Chinese equally. Africans, we got 54 nation states on the continent. Then we Jamaicans and Cubans and African. We got all this divisive shit. So the purpose of Race First and the whole African identity is to connect all of us to the land base and to the political destiny of the people that we share the most in common with, which is our race. It's a very, very powerful conversation we're having. Shout out to Brother Safiwi Balika. Brother, he does great work. Does a lot of work out here on the continent and has really, really, really been reviving the ideal of New Africanism.
Right.
Right now you have FBA, people going crazy with Foundational Black America and ADOS. But prior, there was a movement to identify the nationality of Black Americans, not the ethnicity, not the culture and the language and the dance and song, but the political nationality, the right for us to have independent governance and sovereignty as a people, land as a people, right? And so that movement, of course, was the child of Malcolm, was the child of Queen Mother Moore, meaning it was the grandchild of Garvey, because you can't get Queen Mother Moore and Malcolm X without Garvey. Now we can talk about it.
That's right.
So at that point, they began to go for sovereignty in the United States of America for African people. They realized we had to have a national name. What's our nation's name? They went through the process to create the Republic of New Africa and identify those of us who are Africans from the Ma'afa in the United States as New Africans, because we came from old Africa. Our ancestors were part of the old regime, but today we represent the new Africans that we became in the diaspora by force. Very powerful concept, because we don't have to just follow these FBAs or these ADOSs when we have RNAs and we have Republic of New Africa that's already addressing the national issue of Black people in America and has prioritized and pioneered the reparations struggle. So the reparations conversation.
I just want to throw a term out real quick, because, you know, it's no offense to nobody. I really appreciate the work that everybody is doing, but I'm an ascendant, not a descendant from Africa. I'm ascending back to Africa. Right. I want to make that clear, and that's no offense to anyone, because I know everybody got their different names, but we got to be careful with speaking forked tongue, as the so-called indigenous North American people say. We speak with forked tongue. We're using a Yurugu language, and until we get back to like Jicho La Kimbunga instead of Eye of the Whirlwind, we are kind of at a disadvantage, and that language barrier that divides us. You know, that's why I was talking about ain't no such thing as democracy coming out of Yurugu's mind. It's demonocracy. Ain't no such thing as a republic. It's reptilian. So we need to redefine certain things for them, because that's what they've done to us. They've programmed us. As Malcolm said, we've been hoodwinked. We've been bamboozled. We've been robbed. Been
Led
taken
astray.
out of our own selves, taken out. We got to come back to that. And that's what we're talking about when we say raising consciousness. You know, we're talking about getting back to Blacktricity. So I just want to make it clear to all the listeners out there, you know, it ain't about me, he or she. It's about we collectivity. Mbutu, Mahat.
Yeah.
We coming back to
Right.
one. We love Black people. That's why we say race first.
Race
and
first.
we know a lot of our Black people ain't Black in mind. Some of them are lost. But we want to try to help you. But we ain't going to let you pull us back. If you want to go integrate, go do that. But leave us alone and let us build forward and take back the sovereignty of Africa. I'm gonna stop right there, Chief, because you know, the Blacktricity is kicking up, you know, and the vibration is so important for us to speak truth to power in this day, because Malcolm is in us, Garvey is in us, Amy Jocks Garvey is in us, Queen Mother Moore is in us, Obadeli is in us, Chukwe Lumumba is in us, Thomas Sankara. We got so many revolutionaries who pointed the way we need to go. And we don't need to reinvent the wheels. We need to connect the wheels. We need to close ranks. So regardless to whether we have differences, we have more in common. And until Africa is under our control, let's don't fight over our little minor differences, brothers and sisters. Let's come together and get the power that we need so we can move forward. Our youth are calling on us, and our African queens.
That's right. That's right. Hey, shout out to Brother David King, another brother of the Jicho La Kimbunga Brotherhood. For those who don't know, Jicho La Kimbunga is Kiswahili for Eye of the Whirlwind. Garvey predicted that he will return in the whirlwind. Welcome home, Garvey. This is the whirlwind. This is the forward march of the UNIA ACLRC 2020 into the 21st century and beyond. Brother David says here, global African unification is humanity's salvation. An aspect of this movement that we fail oftentimes to realize. Yes, we're Africa for Africans. Yes, we're Black first. Yes, we're race first. But at the same time, we claim the whole world. We want we want peace, unity, and development for everybody.
That's right.
We ain't evil. We ain't the demons. We the, you know what I mean? We the mothers and fathers of all. And so we're not seeking to compete with them in the destruction of the world. We're seeking to liberate humanity as a whole from the destruction of Uruku.
And Chief, you said it, and save the planet. Because humanity and the planet is under attack by evildoers. And those of us that are righteous, we need to, like Garvey say, science par excellence. We need to save our planet and save ourselves.
Ashe. From Delaney to Garvey to Touré. That's right. That's the process. That's the process. Brother Safiri says, from the Alliance of Sahel States to the United African States. Baba Senghor, maybe you can talk about that, because now we're talking about, you know, the Pan-African Federalist movement and the goal of the movement and bringing into existence the political federated state of Africa. At least
it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to 1920 when Garvey called Africans from around the world together, and we established our own Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples and called for the united Africa of the world. And so now, yes, the PAFM, the Pan-African Federalist Movement, and a whole lot of other groups that are focused. That's why we need to close ranks and come together, because we are not yesterday Garvey movement. We are the 21st century Garvey movement, and we here, and we want to establish peaceful Mahat agreements with all progressive thinking Africans. Even if our ideologies are a little different, we're going to stand our ground on race first, and we're going to stand our ground on Garveyism and universal Pan-Africanism. But we need to be united with you, because everybody got some work that they can do and bring to the table. That's very, very important. You know, when we start talking about unification, we need to sit down and reason with one another, because all of us need food, clothing, and shelter and security. All of us, no matter where we are, on the continent or throughout the world. But if we don't free up the continent, Africans nowhere are going to have freedom. That's very important for the Garvey movement. And I say that we want a united African states. Sheikh Anta Diop told us about federating. We got a co-federation on the move. So now we got to hook it up where there's a whole federation of people coming together. And we got to understand, y'all, that all African people have the right to food, clothing, and shelter, security, and medical health health and wellness. We got that right. So how do we get back to that? Sit at the table with Mobutu and Mahat in mind and set aside our differences. And they can be hammered out on the anvil of reason, but we don't need to be killing one another and fighting one another.
That's right. That's right. We need to start over. We got to get back. We got to get back to day one and start fresh, and knock it out in rapid speed, man. Because right now the way it's looking is that African people are going to make up almost 20-30% of the population before the end of this century on the world, and we still don't produce toilet paper for every ass that needs to wipe. We still don't produce toothpaste for every mouth. Every African mouth.
That's right.
These are the goals that the UNIACL traditionally has upheld. That the economics of the UNIA is to produce that which Africans need, not to be capitalist or socialist, but to produce that which Africans need. More like an African communalism established on principles of egalitarianism, which Kwame Nkrumah talked about. That the original system was African communalism, and it was based on egalitarianism. It didn't have the same principles of materialism or competition or money. Development and production happened differently back then, and it was largely kinship and community based. We got to return to our source. We got to understand that that's the remedy for our future.
So, Chief, before we close, I just want to hail up all of our brothers that are all over the world that are in Jicho La Kimbunga. And I know y'all only see 3 of us right now. Earlier, the PG was here, and we only representing a small group of us. But we serious, y'all. We the eye of the whirlwind. And it's not about me, he, or she. I was taught by people who taught Garvey, and I'm absolutely clear that our ancestors are moving us. Our ancestors are moving us. We are one with our ancestors. I want to make that clear, brothers and sisters, because sometimes we talk about, well, they dead. No, they ain't dead. We spiritual beings having a physical experience. All of us will come to that point, but we are spiritually, eternally, forever moving forward, particularly if you got it on the righteous side. So to all our brothers and sisters, no matter what faith base you may have, no matter what your political line is, if you're about the upliftment of black people, it's time to come together right now.
Right now is the time
to come together for the youth too.
Absolutely.
If the youth don't know you in your neighborhood and in the community, you know that we doing something wrong, because there's a big knowledge gap. There's a big knowledge gap right now, and we got to focus more on just, again, tending to the food, clothing, and shelter, but also actualizing those principles for them, because like I said, a big knowledge gap, man. We see a lot of interest around Ibrahim Traore, of course. So they're learning, but we need to be more consistent in just reaching them.
Absolutely, Sam. Absolutely.
And you know, it's like what you said, brother. Grassroots activism is a big part of it. Us as organizers, we have to give the people more and more opportunities to engage. You know, to get experience, because the experience is what makes you more interested in education. Ultimately build your mindset. When you go back and you read about Garvey, and you read about Assata Shakur, you read about the great ancestors that names we can call, they all had starts. None of them was like raised or just born up with the consciousness. They had to go through some activities and some studies and some real struggles that cultivated their consciousness. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. And so we have to also usher a new generation of young people through that process. Rites of passage is in order. Political education is in order. Organizational training and leadership training is in order. And so no matter where you at, this is my last message as well. No matter where you are, get involved in organization. There's people around you somewhere that's doing something that's progressive and can be used within your family, within your community, and also within the race. So start with what you can handle. You can handle yourself. Start with yourself first. Organize yourself properly. Organize a study schedule. Organize a time during the day where you can remember the ancestors and connect with that spirit. Organize yourself first and foremost. And then after that, you get involved with organizing the solutions to our problems at the grassroots level. Those who are in education, you know, those who are into sports and youth activities, whatever you're into, there's a lot of people out there who do great work, but they don't have the political mind yet. They have not yet been won to race first. African nationalism. They have not yet even been approached about it. We got to get active. These same people that's running over the FBA and ADOS and all these other counter-revolutionary groups are people that we could have reached first. And so even as we criticize others, we have to issue the self-criticism.
Yes.
We have to say, man, listen, man, ain't no way they can outcompete. Ain't no way they can get more members than us. That used to be the friendly competition among black organizations. How big your ranks is, you know, how disciplined your soldiers are, how well organized and uniformed y'all show up to the convention. That's important. That keeps the culture of revolution alive. That inspires the young people that's watching, that don't understand yet. And we got to get back active. So I really appreciate what you just said, Sam. Let's get active. Find an organization. Find a progressive black nationalist organization. There's schools out there. There's Afrocentric schools.
Exactly.
You have farms. You have co-ops that's being developed all across the states. You got some people buying land and creating little village environments. Believe me, it's happening. Get involved. Find out what you can do that is already within your ability that the people need, that the community can benefit from. We won't thrive right away, but everybody can contribute something. Find what that something is within you and find a way to contribute it. That's what I would say lastly. This race first thing is every single African's responsibility to implement in their own life first. We're not imposing it on nobody. We're just gonna be it. Just be yourself, be African, you know, and connect with the rest of us. That's where we at right now. Like you said earlier, Baba Senghor, it's about bringing the different groups together now. I don't have no problem with nobody who's in no progressive black organization. You ain't got to call yourself a Garveyite. You ain't got to like the UNIA or support the UNIA.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing work that is benefiting African people, I'm trying to find a way to support you.
Exactly.
I'm trying to find a way to connect with you, even no matter how you feel about me. And so I think that's the attitude we got to have. Let's break the barrier, especially among men. One thing about Jicho La Kimbunga is that we're about developing that brotherhood, bringing that brotherhood back, that constant flow of communication, development of a consciousness. So if you meet any of us, you're going to encounter a certain consciousness that that brought us together. Very, very important thing. And so get involved, even if you're a youth or you're a woman or you're an elder. All those categories and classifications don't mean nothing to African civilization. I've been in the villages and the elders got their role, the little girls got their role, the little boys got their role, the youth boys, the youth girls got their role. Everyone has their role in order to make society go and do what it has to do. We got to get back into our African traditional roots and start really, really, really being one with our people. There's too many activists disconnected from the grassroots. They have a lot to say online. They're offering theory. They're getting very popular, but they have zero connection with the masses of people. Zero connection. You don't see them doing anything with the masses of people who don't share an ideal with them or who don't have some interest shared with them. What about the ordinary people walking down the street? What about the poor people? What about, like Sam said, the ordinary people? Let's tap into this humanitarianism that we have, you know? We win the people with action. We win the people with action. All right, yo. So, man, you know, we could do this forever, Baba. And it's been 2 hours. I think we gave the people what they wanted and what they needed today. Brother Sam, thank you so much for coming on, bro. I know you was a little behind, but you came right on time. Literally, Baba was making his exit, and you was entering. So that's how it go. That's that blacktricity Baba be talking about.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's very important. I just want to hail up all the people who tuned in and share this, y'all. Share this because this is something we've been doing ongoingly, and we're going to continue to do. Speak truth to power, and hopefully it will resonate in your mind, and you will get your behind moving in the right direction.
That's right. That's right. Salute, y'all. Pan-Africanism or perish.
Yes,
we'll be back next month with another one. We'll let you know. Just watch the Facebook, you know, watch the groups. You're going to see the flyer come out real soon. But, you know, Jicho La Kimbunga is committed to bringing you the African Survival Initiative Roundtables. Next month marks the first year of bringing them to you. We've covered the election last year. We talked to you about the project 2025 last year. We armed you with the knowledge you needed to make the right decision at the ballot or not. And we're going to continue to serve the people. I seen one person just said that, you know, it's the first time ever encountered this page. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. All of you out there, stay tuned. Find a way to support the work that you unite with. It's time to get busy, y'all. All right? So with no further ado, we will be exiting left. All right, family.
Aluta Continua. Aluta Continua.
Jicho La Kimbunga. One Africa.
One God, one aim, one destiny.
One God, one aim, one destiny, one Africa.
One Africa.
That's right, 4 March.